I went to a conference yesterday, and the conference was with teachers. I've been to a couple of conferences now with teachers, and it's always interesting talking with teachers, as in school teachers, about science, pedagogy, because one, my background's in sports coaching. So I'm kind of like, I'm an intruder in there, but also a lot of their science, pedagogy, is cognitive psychology. So I'm sort of intruder on both sides. And the conversations after the conference yesterday was about applying the science in practice. And what I wanted to ask you about a little bit is, John, is the relationship between online educators and online learners. Because we've seen in our spaces, oh, you show as you're working, show what you're doing as you're going, and teach as you're going, and let people follow your journey, etc., etc. But all of the research that I'm familiar with when it comes to coaches becoming players becoming coaches is players suck at becoming coaches
Yeah.
because players are good at playing, but that doesn't mean they're good at coaching. And it's very similar with teachers, from what I've spoken to teachers about, is just because you're a good student doesn't make you a good teacher. Yet online, a lot of people that were good, however you define good, students are doing online courses, online workshops, becoming teachers, coaches, educators, selling loads of things. But for me, when I watch them, I'm like, yeah, but you're not coaching. You're not really educating. All you're doing is saying what you did. That's not effective education. So I'm like, John, what are your experiences of this as a course junkie yourself?
I do like hearing about people's experiences. I think the experience piece is actually, I wouldn't call it educational, but there is value in that, which is why I think it's still an industry that's growing, although we are hitting a massive crash on courses where people are either completely just not taking course. Like I am a self-proclaimed course junkie, but even I'm done on courses at the moment. Like I would rather pay more money to sit one-on-one with someone to get the exact context that I want to discuss that content rather than go through another course. Like that's where I'm at in my journey. And I think what I'm noticing in the kind of business world is exactly that, is people are slowly getting tired of the courses and yet they return to them. I've had a couple of clients who are like, oh, I'm doing this course about this thing. And it's like, okay, cool. How has that helped you to achieve these things? It's like, no, it's just helped me, just teaches me more things to do and how to do them and what to do them and why to do them. And it's really interesting. The course programmy space is I've had very few courses where I was taught something that I've actually been able to really take in. It's been bits of this and bits of that from the whole experience of all the courses I've taken. And it's really interesting now coming from a more dynamic perspective rather than the cog perspective, because I've just gone straight off courses. I've just gone, I just can't sit through a course, a linear. The moment I sit through a course, it is primarily linear. So it's
Hmm.
like do this, then do that, then do this, then do that, which works for some things. So if you're trying to learn how to set up your ConvertKit, once you understand why, there is a linear progression at what you would do because you're setting up a tool, which is great for courses. But what I think I find really hard in business is when business owners are teaching people how to run a business or how to market their business, because both of those are incredibly dynamic.
See, this is
And I
interesting.
just and I just point blank hate productivity courses after taking a lot of them. I just
Mhm.
think they're pointless. They are genuinely a big waste of time. They are such a waste of time.
And that's the interesting point. So after the course yesterday, went to the pub afterwards, obviously, to have a chit chat. And I was speaking with one of the guys there, and he was saying, so we were discussing PKM stuff. So he's an Obsidian user as well. So it's like, yay, one of us. And he and I were discussing the courses, and some people they teach how to teach what it is that they're teaching, right?
Yes.
Like They will
That's
do a
where that is from a business perspective. That's where the money is.
yeah, exactly.
So what they're
But
doing is to teach for the money. They want to
yeah.
teach people so that they can make money, which
Mm.
I do not have a problem with. As a business owner, you want to make money, that's fine. Be upfront about that.
I don't have a problem with business owners making money. I have a problem with
Yeah.
business owners pretending to be teaching something that they're
Mm.
not. Like I'm gonna
Yes.
use
Yeah.
some of the people from the PKM space as examples. Like when you look at Nick Milo's course, he yes teaches you how to use Obsidian, great, but
Enough to
there
Nick
are
Milo again. That always goes to
oh
the
yeah.
hell.
Yeah, he teaches you how to use Obsidian, great, and other tools. But from what I've seen of his work, his writing, his explanations, his thinking inside of the tool, it's not what I would class as effective thinking. Like he's copying quotes, he's bringing highlights in, but he's repeating the same stuff everyone else on the online on the internet is doing. Like there's nothing for me unique about his thinking. There's nothing forward thinking from it apart from how he's using Obsidian. So,
And I realize and I recognize why that is because I've been thinking about this quite a bit. Because
mm,
as I've been right, setting up my website, I've been rebuilding it, rebranding, rethinking like how I'm going to communicate on the internet. And I have a couple of clients, and all of those clients, I'm noticing a pattern. They are all on the edge of what they do. They are
mm,
all leaders in the business world, is what it would be called. Like
yeah,
they are leaders. They are trying to push the boundaries of what we think is that. I have one who is a marketing coach who teaches marketing dynamically, and there's not a step-by-step approach. She has to approach it. She constrains it so it looks linear from a perspective when you first get started, and then expands that. But I have one who does that, and another who basically does what I do in the PhD space
right.
and helps people with their PhD and managing all of that stuff. And the interesting fact is both of them are like, how do I market this? And they talk about this way and it's talk about that. And the reaction I give is it's hard and it's going to be hard because it's not easy to sell.
Yeah.
Because it's not easy to sell a solution that actually it's not sexy to talk about. It's not as sexy to talk about. So it's easier to talk about the stuff that everybody else is talking about because everyone will see what you're saying and go, oh yeah, I remember, Jim Bob over here said that, and this is their way of teaching it, and maybe it'll be different, and maybe it'll work like this, and maybe it'll be like that. And so then if it's different, then it'll be better, and then I'll be able to do it, and then it's like that. And as I've been building, this kind of goes into me rebuilding my website. Because I'm coming from an ecological approach, it is so hard because as when I'm marketing the approach, I'm needing to use terminology that my audience is using, which is in many ways an exact contradiction
Mm.
to what I'm saying. And so it's a really fine balance. And that's what makes it so hard to market what I do. I have to talk about the experiences. But how do you talk about experiences on a sales page when they're supposed to be short sales pages? Well, I'm come up with a couple of ideas and I'm experimenting and exploring that myself. But it is really hard.
Ali's,
Whereas,
I was going to say, using Ali's course as an example here, Part-Time YouTuber Academy, he said it multiple times. There's nothing in the course that you can't find online already. So
yeah,
for me, if you can already find it online for however, just watching through videos and experiencing things, what's the value of the course? The value of the course is what? And this is where
I think it. So this I can answer for you
I was
because
going to
I
say I'm
did.
curious to your thoughts.
It's not having to search for it. That that
But you
that
are.
for a very long time, I know, but that for a very long time was the reason. It's like, oh, Ali has brought all this together to me in one place, and I can just go through it, and it's nice and linear and step by step. And I need to be told what to do because if I'm not told what to do, I won't do it right. And if I don't do it right, then it will be wrong and it won't work.
But I feel like it's similar when you look at the retrieval practice research. I'm going to call it retrieval practice research because that's what it's called. But I would just say it's practice. When you have the students trying like doing retrieval practice, they don't feel that it's that beneficial. They feel like rote repetition is more useful. That's their feeling towards the practice. So they feel that doing the same thing, like rote repetition of work, reading through something over and over, they feel that that is better for them. But retrieval practice, where you're testing yourself, is actually better for them, like when you look at most of the studies. So the thing that they feel isn't beneficial is helping them more than the thing they feel is beneficial. So when I'm looking at these courses and people feel that the course is beneficial for them and they're going to spend lots of money doing it, that's actually not as beneficial as them going and figuring it out, testing themselves and understanding it for themselves, which is why I think the people that don't do the courses or they learn things outside of the courses do better than the people that actually do the courses.
And that's the thing. If you look at this is kind of what I was talking about on that page that I sent you of like when you're not being taught it and told how to do it, you seem to learn more. But it's harder because you're actually going from your own experience versus just following what other people are telling you what to do. And the thing is that the people who are making successful businesses and are having a successful business are doing it one of two ways. One, they're fucking around and finding out, or two, they're trying to teach you how to teach other people to teach them to do things.
This gets me thinking. When you look at the learner space, how to be a better learner, how to pass your grades, how to do X, Y, Z in school, etc., 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 most of those people do the opposite of what they're suggesting people do. Like when you look at the course content, it's telling you what to do, or it's giving you the research, it's giving you the answers, it's giving you solutions, but giving solutions reduces the cognitive load, the amount of energy or effort the individual puts into learning the thing. And this comes back to what I said at the start. The learners, the students, the players, the athletes, the whatever, them doing the thing is one thing. Them teaching people how to do the thing is something else. The better educators that find more effective results use retrieval practice designs. So they're going to test, they're going to have representative practice, they're going to follow something that's more ecologically valid, they're going to let individuals explore solutions. I mean, even at the conference yesterday, where most people were talking about cognitive psychology, working memory, that frickin' model was shown in every single presentation. Working memory goes to long-term memory with schemas and, oh, shut up. But when it came to actual practice, they weren't talking about giving the answers. They were talking about, okay, we're going to give them some practice questions for them to explore answers. Or they were talking about doing something with their body, like embodied cognition was a presentation I went to. And they're talking about ecological practices, like designs, in the actual behaviors, in the actual lessons. So the teachers were doing things ecologically valid, but trying to justify it through cognitive psychology, through some mental gymnastics, which didn't really work, but I didn't bother challenging it. But the behaviors of the teachers that were effective was ecologically valid.
Yeah.
But the behaviors of the students that they were trying to argue against were justified by the cognitive psychology of, oh, you just need to put it into your working memory so it's in your long-term memory for you to retrieve. No. No. And those people that are, those students that have found a solution, that have done a course, do the, hey, here's what I now have in long-term memory, I'm going to give it to you. That's not effective education from what we've seen in the research. And that's even what they talk about. When you look at Ali, active recall, retrieval practice, you need to be tested. Where in his course are they tested on what to learn? I haven't taken the course, I don't know the course, but if it's anything like Tiago's course or David's course or any of the other productivity courses that I've seen, it's not active recall, retrieval practice. It's not spaced repetition. It's, okay, here's 4 weeks. You're going to do a video here. You're going to do a video here. You're going to do a video here. Or here's the lessons, follow the lessons. Here's the instructions. Here's what I know. Here's this lecture on me telling you the stuff that I know. That's doing the opposite of what he's suggesting we should do as learners, which to me is, I don't understand why. And it's a frustration as an educator, as someone in the research. I'm like, you talk about all this stuff, but then you don't do it. The student.
And often it's the constraints of the platform, and also assuming that there as well, because you know what they've done? They've taken a course on how to build a course, and so they're following the course about building a course, which is why I threw out.
Yeah.
It's one of the things because I've been supporting a client through completely redoing their marketing kind of program that they have. And how did we do it? We used their own techniques, the stuff that she's developed for herself. Instead of taking her through my process, like, all right, okay, cool. So use your content tree. But it feels very like it's not like that. Okay, why is it not like that? Because it's not as linear. I said, I know, but you're in a course platform. So what do you want to do about that? And it was going, and we were exploring that together, and it's really interesting to use. And I think that's really powerful if we use our own things that we have created because we've come up with these ideas on our own, and we can't just AI that. Because the thing is that I guess I could come in to most courses and get the best marks just by using AI generated stuff.
Probably. This is one of those things that I find interesting when it comes from like the student becomes the teacher sort of thing, is if you actually try and apply the things that most students and learners are talking about into education, and if they're doing it well, it doesn't look like most education. But it's because it doesn't look like most education that it's effective. So for a lot of the presentations yesterday, which I didn't want to poke at because we only had 15 minutes between breaks, and it was like it's going to be a half-hour plus conversation between breaks. It's not enough time. But all the teachers were discussing how students need to explore. They need to have the opportunity to learn, to make the mistakes. They need to retrieve and have questions and reflect and do pre-testing and post-testing to understand what it is that they've learned, stored in long-term memory, all that, yeah, whatever. But the lecture, and I'm going to call it a lecture, had none of that. The very first presentation of the conference yesterday was about prior knowledge and how we need to understand the students' prior knowledge so that we can work out what goes into working memory so we don't overload them. Again, I don't like the theory.
Isn't if we just pause for a minute and we assume that any of that is true, which we neither one of us do believe, aren't teachers struggling enough?
Yes.
In a classroom with 30 plus students, they've got to now know the prior knowledge of each individual student. And the fact if you think about secondary school.
The thing about the prior knowledge bit, though, is where I'm going, is they said, oh, we need to know the prior knowledge. I'm like, right, okay. Insert all the other retrieval practice, cognitive load, working memory, don't overload them, attention stuff. Okay, we need to know their prior knowledge. How do you do that in a conference where you're lecturing people? Because none of them, from my experience and from what I've seen, ask at the start, have you seen this model before? So they talk about the model that 80% of the people at the conference have seen for the last 3-4 years at other conferences or have done their own research about it. So the very first presentation about have a look and see what the learners already know was ignored with all the presentations. Excuse me, what's going on? And then when they talk about, oh, we need to avoid overload, how are you going to avoid overload if you don't know what the people are talking about? And this was one of my biggest frustrations. I said this in 3 of the 4 presentations I went to, some variation of this. Can you be specific? And like, what do you mean? Well, are we talking about a year 7 student, a year 11 student, a top set student, a bottom set student, someone that you're talking to right now, like me? I am familiar with this research. Someone else in this room is not familiar with this research. When you're giving me this question, what is the context? What is the relationship between me, the organism, and the environment? Like, give me context to answer this question, because that's what they were doing. They were giving us questions, retrieval practice questions to answer. And every single one, I wanted to go, it depends. I wanted to be that person. Like, it depends on the context. And as the educators, as teachers, I'm like, okay, you're lecturing about how to educate through methods that are ineffective. You hypocrite. And I see this online as well, more online. But I was speaking with some of the teachers afterwards and they were saying, yeah, it's really difficult to lecture like a teacher. Don't lecture then. Like, don't lecture. If it's more effective, in whatever word you want to use there, to teach, then teach. If your meaning of teaching is more effective for educators, then teach, don't lecture. Why do you need to lecture at a conference? Social norms? I don't care. I don't want to sit there and listen to you tell me stuff that I already know. And And the course platform is the same thing. Just because the course platform has a module, lesson, you follow these things, doesn't mean you have to do lectures. Small little rant there. Do you want to add something to that? Or I see you nodding like Churchill over there. Yeah.
Oh yes. Yeah. I experience the same thing in the business world with most of the courses. As I go back and read courses, I'm just like, okay, cool. Oh no. Oh no. It's just once you've learnt it in one place, you've learnt it everywhere. And yet
The
when you
knowledge
look
about,
at
yeah.
how, yeah, but then when you look at how people use it, they don't.
So my question then for you, when it comes to online education and courses,
Mhm.
how do you, so I asked Julia this, how do you lecture ecologically? That's what I asked her. How do you make an ecologically valid course? John?
I don't that I've been thinking about this because of course I actually do have a task taming course.
Yeah, exactly.
How? I don't know if it's possible. I'm not entirely sure if it's possible to be fully ecological. I think
Okay.
there are ways we can make it more ecological, but the way to make it ecological is to be sat in the room with the person and talk to them individually, one on one, because there is that context there, because then you can have those conversations, because then you can add that context.
So I wanna add some context to this maybe. When we look at, say, a month of educating, whether you're a teacher, you're a coach, whatever, yeah, you have a session. You turn up to a session. Do you have a session plan? Would be my first question. If you do have a session plan, do you stick to it? If you stick
No.
to it, then I would say you're not adjusting to the learner. So if we look at a month of training, of educating, of teaching, and you have a goal for that month, do you have a goal for that month? Would be the first target, like first question. Like, do you have a goal for that month of teaching? In sport, maybe it's I want to work on forward rotations in trampoline, or
Mm.
maybe it's in school, I want to work on this module of this textbook. In business, maybe I want to work on how to do email stuff. It's a very broad, open goal,
Yes.
right? If you say I want to get them to doing this thing like this, giving these answers, I don't think that's ecologically valid.
No.
So we give them a broad open goal. Now we have our lessons. Say we've got one lesson a week, so we've got 4 lessons, just coaching, teaching, whatever. And we have a lesson plan. We have an ideal guiding principle for the lesson. Trampoline, maybe it's forward somersaults, lesson, module, courses, I don't know, some topic, email marketing. During that session, there are going to be tasks, and you're going to create tasks, task focus. There's going to be a task
Yeah.
focus, and you're going to create the task, and you're going to constrain for tasks.
Yeah.
Inside of a session, if you've got 30 kids, or you've got 25 kids, or you've got 10 adults, you can't adjust the constraints for all of those individuals at the same time. It's not
No.
doable. So if you set a task for a group of people, and you can't control what other individuals are doing, is that a course? Does that mimic a course? Because if you set up a task in a video and you say, okay, this is the task, i.e., this is the task focus, I want you to do this, go away and do this for 5 minutes, then we will come back and discuss it, which is what typically happens in sport or in teaching, or I would imagine in business. Like, go do this thing. This is your task. Then come back and we'll have a look at that. Is that an ecologically valid course? Because that's how I would coach.
Yeah. No. I don't think it could be ecologically valid because you do not have that additional context of each individual. Because you cannot record a video that has context for each individual. I mean, you could.
So, okay, practical example here then. From let's take it from business. Think of something that you would want to help people understand, educate people on. Do we want to use email marketing as an example?
Yeah, let's do email marketing lessons fun.
Yeah. So when we use a task focus, what would when helping someone with their email marketing, what would the first thing you would want them to attune to? What piece of information would you want them to attune to start with to help them become better at email marketing?
It would be the goal-directed behavior. It would be what do they want their email marketing to do? What is the end result for them? What is the result that they want to do? How much work do they want to put into this email marketing? I'd want to look at it from kind of the higher, like the bigger picture like where is it in their business, how much of a priority it is, because that influences what they do next. Because if it's a real high priority for them, like it is for me, for example, a lot of my email marketing is where a lot of my marketing comes in, because I have more capacity to be individualized, because I have things like segmenting, because I have things like people replying to their emails. But anyway,
That's where the technical stuff in the future. So the first focus would be, okay, having a goal of the email marketing, right?
yeah, yeah,
So
having the goal and seeing how it fits within the overall approach of how they want to market. What is that? How much they want to be email marketing?
yeah, so the easy way, the cog-psych, the instructional way to do that in a course is saying you need to have a goal for your email. You need to
Yeah,
have a sequence, and this is going to get them to do this is going to get them to do this, and this is going to get them to do that, right?
yeah,
You just tell them the answers. So my
yeah.
question to you then would be, how would you create a task that is ecologically valid to help the individual self-organize their answers, their solutions to being goal directed within their email marketing? What task would you give them? Because that's the constraints-led approach.
Yeah.
You're giving someone a task, you're adding constraints to help them self-organize a solution. So what is the
Mm,
problem to the emails that they're currently sending out? Because you wouldn't know unless you've seen an email.
yeah.
So
It would
they,
probably be to write an email.
but writing an email, there's like limited constraints on there. So, these are the sorts of things that I think would make a course more ecologically valid. It's
Mm,
not a lecture or a lesson, it's a task. We are giving an
yeah.
individual a constrained task, and then once they've
Write
done,
an email talking about their one-to-one offer. It would be very specific to like, and they would write an email around a specific product, whether it be a one-to-one. And I would actually not put the one-to-one offer on it, thinking about it. I would say on an offer. So there's a little bit of to see where their attention goes, because then that leads to different results.
but where's the feedback? Where's the transitional feedback? Within a task, there needs to
Mhm.
be some way for them to go, okay, this is successful, this isn't successful.
That would be how many people like it. That would be defined by them. So when they send the email, it would be okay. One, whether they've said whether how they feel about the email was part of it. It's like, how did you feel about that email? How many people replied to that email? How many people? What happened when that email was sent would be the kind of feedback. It's like, did you get any sales?
That's a
Did you
high
get
risk situation. That's a high
yes.
risk situation because you're putting them in like the actual business. When we're training in practice, you wouldn't want them to send the email out. Say they've got like 10,000 subscribers and they're testing stuff out. That would be a high risk situation. So they don't want to mess that up. Like
Mm,
you wouldn't say, "Hey, I want you to try this thing that you've never done before in a competition situation." No. You would want to create a psychologically safe environment in practice, in training for them to develop those skills.
mm,
Like in martial arts, you're training, you're like using an MMA example, because I would imagine we're going to have people from that sort of the ecological dynamics Discord listening. Like you've got two people in a training scenario. Here's the task: you start in this position. I want the top person to do this. I want the bottom person to do this. Figure it out. When one person wins, swap over. That's a traditional like Greg Souders sort of task. Like Rob would do the same sorts of things with batting. Okay, or say pitching. I want you to pitch, but you're going to have a ball under your arm. If the ball goes forwards, that's positive. If the ball goes backwards, it's negative. I want you to do it until you can consistently get this thing done. It's a practice task.
mm.
How do you do that with emails? Well, as an individual, what I start thinking about is, okay, we want to add some constraints here, but we need some sort of repetition without repetition, right?
Yeah,
Representative practice would say, okay, we're going to write an email. We need to
yeah.
write an email to some extent. Is it writing the first part, the middle part, the last part, the whole email sequence?
Mm.
So we can play around with what parts of the email we're going to write. Then what else can we do when it comes to the representative practice? Well, if we write the same part 10 times, we've now got repetition without repetition, but maybe we have to include certain words or exclude certain words or explain a certain topic, explain a certain point. So maybe you want to have, so the goal would be, so the goal of the task, success, is to write the second paragraph of an email that's promoting X thing,
Next
whatever
thing.
product. Yeah, you're going to promote this product. And so you're going to promote selling courses. You're going to promote your course in this email. And what I want you to do is I want you to create 10 emails. So now you've got a number, success is, I want you to create 10
Yeah.
emails in, I don't know, half an hour. So you've got a time constraint on there as well. And I want you to, like, the first four are going to be 200 words. The second four are going to be 200 words, and the last two you can do whatever you want with. So it's more freedom for the last words, but the other ones are constrained. And I want you to do it in half an hour. Give yourself a timer, do it. I recognize it's probably going to be very difficult depending on the type of speed, but you get the sort of gist. You're adding constraints in the task, and their success for the different emails are going to be different. So they could say, "Oh, I did that quick enough," or "I didn't do that quick enough." So you've got speed of writing, which adds a constraint. And then towards the end of that, you go, "Okay, now let's have a reflective practice. Let's actually look at this, read through it." So the second task potentially could be, "Okay, which one's more interesting to you?" Looking at it going, "Okay, now I want you to pick apart those that you've read." So the second task, the success task, comes from you successfully picking apart your own work. So in Trampoline, I would record them doing the skills. Them doing the skills, say they do 10 tuckbacks. Great, you've done 10 tuckbacks and you've landed them all. That's the success of that task. The next task, that success, is to actually pull your own skills apart and say, "Okay, was that a 0 deduction or a 5 deduction? 5 deduction is obviously bad. 0 deduction is obviously good." So the success for the task is actually showing the failures of the first task,
Okay.
right? That for me is more ecologically valid in a course because it's giving them practice, repetitive practice of what it is they're doing, emails, and they're then self-organizing solutions for them. So you're giving them the tasks for them to self-organize solutions for, whilst developing their own skills to be able to evaluate what is effective, what's ineffective. That for me is more ecologically valid, but I'm still working this through.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. I think what I did is I went so broad and I needed to constrain even further. Upon reflection of my own learning, like I went so broad of what I was doing versus going really small. And that's something that I'm quite typical to do because there are so many different angles when it comes to business and so many opportunities, it's really hard to choose one to constrain. And I think it's the case of choosing one.
I'm just thinking as well, because the way that we would coach through the constraints-led approach is obviously we would be observing what's happening and then we would
Yes.
adjust constraints appropriately. How do
Yes.
you do that in a course? Well, I would say that it's easy. You do a flowchart. Like if if someone's reflecting, so you got task one, do emails, task two, reflect on emails, assess your emails, pick them apart. If you see this thing more, if you see that you didn't finish the writing in time, here's the next task. If you did
Oh,
finish the right,
yeah, that's
if you did finish
cool.
the writing in time, but you felt like you were just saying the same shit over and over and over again, now do this task. If
Mm.
you felt like actually it was pretty good and you got it well, now do this task. So you're giving desirable difficulty for those individuals to self-organize what tasks to do next. Yes, that's a fuck ton of work for the course creator, but that's coaching through task design rather than through lectures.
And now I'm going to go and rebuild my entire Task Taming for Busy Brains course. Thank you very much.
But it also gives the learner some autonomy. It's
Mm.
like, "Oh, I know how to do this already. I'm going to go to the next bit." But then if they go to the next bit, they do the task. So I can imagine people going, "Oh yeah, I know how to do all of this," and then they do a task that's very, very difficult. So effective marketing people would be good at it, but not effective marketing people would be struggle at it. If they go in there and go, "Oh, I'm going to do this thing," and then they look at the feedback and the results of what is successful for that task, and like, "Well, actually, I sucked at this," they can go back I go, okay, well, what's this other task?
I
And
I'm thinking about this from a task kind of like, if I'm talking about task management, it's really interesting how I'm already like, oh, that would be really interesting to do. Like having them try and complete as many tasks in 30 minutes. They have 30 minutes to complete tasks. Go. And then afterwards they're reflecting on those X tasks that they've got to complete in 30 minutes.
for tasks and task taming, you can put arbitrary tasks in there. Hey, here's
Yeah.
a list of 5 tasks. You need to do them. Go.
Yeah.
What order do they do them in?
Yeah.
When do they do them? How do they organize it? Do they organize it? Because the first thing for me would be, well, did you get the 5 tasks done? And if they
Mm.
did, why are you on this freaking course? Because you can do shit. Like, hey, look, you're successful.
Oh, that would be so fun.
So all you got to do is say, okay, first task is to do these 5 things. You got to click over here. You got to push this button. You got to do that. Great. Okay, you can do things. Why are you here? Oh, it's because they're really difficult tasks. Okay, we'll try and do this one now. And you've got some more harder tasks on there, but they could be easy tasks for them if they are good at certain things. So if
So
they're
there's
good
a
at,
whole variety, a little bit. Oh, I'm gonna have one
hey,
hell of a day
here's
today.
here's a 2-minute video. What I want you to do is watch the video and count this thing. Well, you've watched the video, you've counted the things, so you were pretty good at that. So you can't be bad at watching videos. Oh, no, no, no. It's watching videos that are really long. You're like, well, okay, watch this long video or watch this longer video, like the next task. Watch a longer video, and I want you to focus on this, this, and this. So you've given them something to attune to, which obviously reduces the complexity of the task. And you're like, well, you've now watched a 10-minute video and you've given me these 3 answers. Well, what are you struggling with? So you're giving them tasks for them to complete. And if they do struggle to do it, then you can work out different practices, tasks, practices, practice designs to help them develop those skills.
It
Okay,
is
so
possible.
instead of a 10-minute video,
It is possible to teach task. Wow,
yeah.
that's kind of cool.
I mean, that's what I'm thinking of doing when it comes to my ecological psychology. Taking an ecological approach will probably be the name of the course because that's my like tagline, taking an ecological approach. I'm trying to put this information in an ecologically valid course setting. And this is the way that I'm thinking of doing it because as a student, I could sit back and go, okay, here's lecture 1, here's lecture 2, here's lecture 3, here's lecture 4, here's like probably a whole year's worth of degree education on how to educate other people. Great. I don't want to be lectured. So I'm like, okay, how do I do this? Through practice.
And then you could so easily add, as you're kind of building this up, it wouldn't actually take as long to build up as I think originally thought.
It wouldn't take long to practically do it, but it would take long to theoretically base it. It's the same with coaching, like coaching sport. Doing the session is an hour session, but you might spend 10 hours over the week planning out what happens if. Like, for example, later I'm going to coach trampoline. I want to try some things with some of the guys that are there, but I need to work out, okay, what happens if they do this? What happens if they do this? I need to plan for potential solutions that they come up with and what I'm going to do if they do that. But they could do something that I'm not expecting. So I almost need to try and understand. I need to predict all the possibilities of the solutions for the individual to do the task. Like the way I describe this when I was at uni is,
Question.
how can they game the game? Yeah.
Why do you have to predict it all?
I
I mean,
use
for one, is it possible to actually predict? No. Can you predict everything? There will always be like
we would rephrase that. Can I
yeah.
perceive the affordances of the other individuals when they're performing those experiences? Yes. So I use predict because it's shorthand. I'm not talking
Okay.
prediction as in mental representation prediction. I'm talking as in, can I perceive the affordances of other individuals if I was to put them in this constrained experience? Yes, because I've been in those experiences before. This is imagination. So I'm imagining what's happening.
This is D&D.
It's not. It's imagination.
No, it's D&D. Well, yeah, the same thing. As you were talking, I was like, yeah, this is kind of like D&D, like running a D&D session, because you have a scenario or a situation and you have to try and predict what directions they can go. because they could go in multiple directions because there is a lot of
Yeah.
options.
But that's what coaching
Just-
is.
yeah.
You have to, like, kids will game a game,
I said that this is I am about to to teach people how to DM.
right?
And it's really interesting because one of the other DMs was go, oh yeah, we need to build a curriculum, we need to create these things, we need to have these stuff. And I'm like, no. And then the exam will be them running the session. I'm like, no, we're gonna get them to run a session in the first freaking 10 minutes. Like,
Yeah.
no.
Get them doing the thing.
Yeah, no, 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 just no, no, sit down, shush, no. It was
Go in
really
the naughty
interesting.
corner.
Just go in the naughty. No, if we're going to do this, it's going to be different because that I'm just thinking,
Representative practice design.
cool. So I know, and I'm now going to test my theory in a low stakes.
But do you understand what I'm saying?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, because like I say, like kids will game a game. If you give them a task, they will find the easiest way to do it. Like
Yeah.
that's what they'll do. And so what we're trying to do as educators is imagine what sort of solutions they could come up with
Mm.
and either constrain for it or allow them to do it, but there being a consequence. So for example, in trampoline, they could do a back somersault and go backwards, right? But if they go backwards, they're going to get a lower score on horizontal displacement travel because you'd want to stay in the middle. So I can give them a task. Okay, I want you to do a back somersault. Cool. They did a back somersault, but they flew basically to the end of the trampoline. Okay, cool. Constraint. I want you to do a back somersault, but I don't want your HD to be lower than 1. So 0's in the middle, then 1, then 2. So the constraint isn't stay in the middle. The constraint is I don't want to be lower than 1. So they have to try and figure out how to stay in the middle doing a back somersault. So I've added a constraint because I've imagined a potential solution that I don't want to see.
Mm.
And that's what I think we would try and do with the tasks afterwards, like inside of a course. We would want to imagine, obviously, once we've done the course and we've seen it a couple of times, and people going through giving feedback that say, well, I did this and it didn't help with this and it didn't help with that. You're like, oh, okay, maybe this task will be helpful. So you can give more tasks, but we can imagine the potential solutions or struggles individuals have. Like, again, using trampoline as an example, because that's what I'm coaching at the moment. I know going backwards requires you to rotate backwards. That could happen from your feet going forwards, your hips going forwards, or your head going backwards. If your head goes backwards too much, I know, one, it's going to look really bad from a judging perspective, and two, you're very likely to travel backwards. So do I want them to do that? No, but I know they will do that. So how do I stop them from doing that? That's where my task design would come in.
Really cool.
So when you're doing your emails, I imagine there are things that you're like, I don't want them to do that, but I know it's going to happen. So how do I add a constraint in to prevent them from doing that without saying, don't do that? Because you can say, don't use big words, but why don't they want to use big words? How can you encourage them not to use big words if you don't want them to use big words?
Yeah.
That would be the thinking that the educator needs to put in before doing the course.
Mm.
And that's why I think the thinking of doing the course would take longer than actually the doing bit of the course.
Yeah.
And this is why I don't think students are very effective educators, because they don't think about these things.
No.
This is overthinking. No, it's not. This is how education works. This is why education is so complex. As Rob Gray says in his book, teaching is harder than rocket science.
Yeah.
Because rockets can be programmed and they do what you expect them to do. You tell a child to do something, good luck predicting what they're going to do.
Yeah.
They could do it, they could not do it, they could do something very, very, very slightly different.
I suppose you would have to constrain your own, because there are so many options where you would all, I don't know. There are so many potentialities.
Depends on the task that you've created.
So the smaller the task, the less the options, which means the less the options, the easier it is to make the course. Aha.
Because traditional courses are ecologically valid, but they are just extremely constrained. Because it's just, I tell you this thing, you do this thing. That is as constrained as you can get. So what we're looking to do is reduce the constraints, which is what the constraints-led approach is. It's reducing the amount of constraints to allow for exploration and self-organization from learners, because everyone uses constraints. The constraints-led approach isn't oh, you use constraints or you don't use. No, everyone uses constraints. It's the level at which you use those constraints and the purpose of them. So you may start with a highly constrained lesson, but if you do that, individuals that it doesn't suit for are going to go, nah, it don't work for me, which is the issue with most of the courses I've seen. It's heavily constrained.
And so it's figuring out that balance, overthinking that balance.
Yeah, overthinking over a line that we haven't yet created or agreed upon. Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I want to do I want to sort of like share thoughts on this in a video essay kind of thing as well, because I feel like a lot of people recognize this as well. Like when you look at learners, it's like, oh look, they've got another course up. Where's the course? What are you selling? It's like because most people tend to sell what they share online for free anyway.
Yeah.
No, you could listen to their 10 1-hour episodes of a podcast, or you could buy their course.
Yeah.
And that's where I think, where does the value come from a course? The video that I posted a minute ago about the interview with Julie, it probably will have been up for a couple of weeks when this episode comes out. But we discuss about, well, how do you add value as a lecturer? So if you can just AI it or search it, where's the value? Same as content creators, where's the value? Course creators, where's the value? What are you adding? I think as educators, our value is creating learning environments.
Yeah. Oh, that's really interesting.
I recognize I've done a bit of a lecture at the end of this podcast.
No, it is interesting though, because all the problems I have with courses, because I've been thinking very much that I'm just gonna take the courses down. They're just gonna go. There's no courses. I just don't want to do courses. Don't want to do digital products. But then that means all of the time and money are literally like this, which means I have to spend all of my time coaching, which right now is fine and cool. And I like that. I enjoy that. But if that changes, what then? But then I may not want to spend my time and energy coaching people on tasks or creating. Yeah, there are so many things in business that I wouldn't necessarily want to sit and coach, but people need the help on, which if I use the ecological approach and create an ecologically valid course on email marketing, on why, on this. And I wonder whether
because even with tech tools, you can have like the first, yes, it would be linear, as in you need to actually download the software or you need to open the software or log into the software or whatever, but you can set that as a task. Like, I don't think people are that incompetent that they can't work out how to log into somewhere if you give them the constraints. If you say, okay, go to this website, and what I want you to do is get to this page, get to the login page, get to the welcome page. People can figure it out. Like they won't know how to do everything, but you say, okay, go to this web page and then come back when you're here. So they go to the web page, they type in their name, they type in their email, and then they come back when they see that web page. When they see like the next bit, right? Okay, now that you've done that, we're gonna, I don't know, try and find the explore page. Like, you're giving them something to go and look for, rather than click here, click here, click here, click, because you're telling them what to do. It's a shift in the way that the task is given. Instead of click the settings cog in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen, you say, locate the settings. So they're going to have to click through all the buttons to try and find locate settings. Now, if they struggle to locate the settings, you can say, try looking at the bottom half of your screen, because now you constrained the exploration environment instead of saying, go click that settings cog. For me, I think that's more ecologically valid than telling them what to do.
And even then, all of this is still one of the big constraints is the course platforms. But with the way we're discussing this, they're just all lessons. It's just lesson, 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 lesson. The module is the goal of this section or the direction that they're heading. And then you have each lesson is...
Set up your first email sequence is module. And then the lessons would be the tasks planned to do. How you split those up, whether you do it like a few different tasks in one lesson, probably.
Yeah.
So yeah. And then if you do have like an answer screen, where does that go? Because that would be my question to you. It's like, would you put an answer screen in the course? Because then people will just go there and be like, oh yeah, this is easy. I'm just going to follow this.
Ew.
Because that may bring some frustration from some users because they're like, I expected you to tell me what to do.
Then I'll refund you and say bye.
Because at the end of the day, the way I see it is if they're learning how to do something, they need to learn how to do something for other things as well, because there are transferable skills. Like if you're logging into a platform is going to be the same for most platforms.
Yeah.
And I also want to respect the intelligence of the individual. I don't want to sit there for a minute in a video to say, okay, push this button, then I'm going to type in my name. No. You don't. That's why I cut that stuff out of my video. Like, you're not dumb. You know how to type. Otherwise, you wouldn't be watching this video.
Yeah.
So I feel like adding those tasks allows individuals to speed through things as well. But if you're listening and you're like, no, this is dumb, let me know. I'm curious to get your thoughts.
Yeah. Come tell us how dumb it is.
Yes.
And then remind us what we said, because it'll be multiple weeks.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Right. Anything else you want to add?
No? All good.
Right. Bye, everyone.